Now, the Republicans are trying to figure out where to go next on health care. See, we thought the whole Trumpcare thing was dead. Turns out it might not be as dead as we thought, as they're in more negotiations with the House Freedom Caucus. Now, the House Freedom Caucus, as I explained yesterday in one of the videos that we did yesterday, they essentially want to eliminate everything that helps poor people and sick people. Now, you have so-called Republican moderates, or not exactly moderate, that are pretty worried about getting destroyed in the polls in the elections in 2018. So if they get rid of these provisions, well, they're going to get crushed. So they really can't agree what to do. Punch poor people in the face, or punch them in the face and then kick them while they're down. Those are the options that we have. Now, one of these Republicans, who's more on the just punch them in the face crowd, is Representative Patrick McHenry. He is the Chief Deputy Majority Whip on the House, and he is, again, he's in favor of option 1. Now, he told reporters on Wednesday that a new proposal that would weaken protections for people with pre-existing conditions is something of a bridge too far for some of our members. Boy, we don't want to really weaken some of these pre-existing conditions things in Obamacare with our new bill, with Trumpcare. So the first thought is, wow, a Republican that actually gives a crap? Wait a minute. There must be something more to this story. Because Republicans normally don't care about regular people. Well, I know. This is a Republican who developed empathy on an issue because he happened to experience the issue firsthand. McHenry, citing his own past medical history and that of his family, is now arguing against the weakening of certain Obamacare regulations, which he called, quote, really important protections. I was once in the individual market for a period of time in my 20s, and my family's medical history is really bad. So my understanding of the impact of insurance regulations is real. I believe I'm a conservative, but I remember the really bad practices in the insurance marketplace prior to the ACA passing. So, already, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that slowly but surely we're becoming more like the rest of the industrialized world, where healthcare is not slowly becoming not really as much of a political issue. We're not there yet, but I mean, in other countries, I mean, the best example I always like to point to is in Michael Moore's movie Sicko. There's he tries to make this point, and the way he does it is he's talking to a guy in Canada, and he goes, "So you support universal health care?" And the guy says, "Yes, of course I do." And he goes, "Oh, so you're really liberal then. You're a really big lefty." And the guy just kind of looks at him sort of confused, like almost like those were two completely unrelated things. Like he just said, like, "Hey, so you really like football, right?" "Yeah, I do." "Oh, so you must be a pierogi enthusiast, right?" Like just two totally unrelated. Like, what do those two have to
Right?
do? I mean, I guess maybe I don't know. Like, I just pulled that out of my ass, but the
Pierogi
guy just kind of
enthusiast?
looked at him very confused, and the point was that in other places it's not. And the guy actually answered, and he's like, "Actually, I would be considered conservative." But I don't know, like, what does that have to do with it? Like, in other places, it's like, hey, we have the wealth to have universal health care, so of course we're going to have that. Nobody should go bankrupt because they break their arm. I think we're slowly getting to that point, and I think, like, the one kind of silver lining with the whole Trump thing is that, people saw Trumpcare and saw what an insane disaster it was, and realized, yeah, you know what? Nobody should not have health care in this country, and nobody should not have unaffordable health care in this country. And I think people are slowly coming around to that. And like we said before, what really sucks is that we don't have a party that's willing to embrace an efficient, universal, single-payer system.
Now that's some interesting points that you make, because I keep going back to an article that I saw on Vox, right? I know, bastion of journalism right there. But no, they talked to Trump supporters, and they came out with the completely wrong conclusion of this, but they talked to Trump supporters, and a lot of them expressed a desire to have single-payer health care. Well, now that's weird, right? That doesn't go along with the narrative that they're all racist, sexist, misogynists, right? So they come back with saying, well, they wanted it because of self-interest, right? Or they wanted it because it's equality because they don't like people that are on, for example, Medicaid while they have to pay insurance premiums. Or some like contrived reason. I guess that sort of makes sense for some of them, but I think a lot of people are like, no, like healthcare. Yes, we like healthcare. We want healthcare, and we also want other people to have healthcare because it makes sense. And not only that, but of course, there are so many different benefits, not only to society but to the individual, of course, for going to a single payer system, and that's lower premiums and not having to deal with an insurance company. So
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, and people are finally coming around to that because they're
yeah.
seeing through the propaganda that's been fed to them by the establishment for so long. And I mean, Donald Trump at one point spoke about universal health care. I mean, he didn't really put it in those words, but he said everyone's going to be covered, government's going to take care of it. I know that makes me different than the other Republicans. Of course, this was just lip service. It was just, more snake oil from the
Yeah,
guy.
and that I don't think he understands exactly what that meant. Like,
No,
I
of
don't
course
think he
he
read
doesn't.
the bill. Like,
Right.
Trumpcare, not his idea. That's Paul
Right.
Ryan's healthcare idea. That's the Freedom Caucus's healthcare idea, sort of. Except that they couldn't agree on how much they wanted to punch people in the face.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is that Trump is I mean, I know this is sort of pie in the sky at this point, but Trump is so focused on just winning
Yes.
that, I mean, if the right person sold him on the idea of single payer, he would push for it. Because he doesn't care about, playing partisan or whatever. He doesn't care if he has to go toe to toe against the insurance companies. He just wants to win.
Yeah. He not
So,
only
I mean,
wants to
I don't.
win,
It's
but-
not going to happen with him, but the conversation is at least going in that direction, and I think that in the big scheme of things, we're going to get closer to it.
Well, also, yes, he wants to win, but remember who he's surrounded by, too. Some very, very right-wing ideologues. Like, look at the
Right.
Mercers, right? Very, very conservative. They gave $13 million to Trump's campaign. So they're one of Trump's biggest donors. These two people who were Robert and Rebecca Mercer. Very, very conservative. Very, very right-wing. Those are the people that are behind the whole Trump rise. So, I mean, that's the money behind them and the ideology behind them as well. So, there's that. And I'm pretty sure they're not in favor of universal health care or anything like that. I think they're more in line with the Koch brothers, at least on the tax issue of, hey, let's cut taxes, which is what this whole entire Trumpcare versus Obamacare thing was. Trumpcare was a $600 billion tax cut and a tax cut of $7 million each for the richest 400 households in America. That's what this whole fight was about.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get back to what was in this bill that this guy disagreed with. Now, again, yesterday I talked about the GOP compromise, which involved keeping Obamacare's essential health benefits rule in place. Oh, how wonderful of them. How nice of them, right? But it would allow states to apply for waivers permitting insurance plans that don't cover things like maternity care, prescription drugs, mental health, addiction treatment, and even hospitalization. They also proposed allowing states to waive Obamacare's community ratings rule, which prevents insurance companies from hiking patients' premiums based on geographic location or health status. Now, McHenry said, when you talk about guaranteed issue, medical underwriting and community rating, those things in tandem work as no discrimination against pre-existing conditions, which a large number of people have pledged not undo. That becomes a real challenge. So, my overall point here is that I think this guy, McHenry, he's like a lot of conservatives, at least in office. They only get empathy when something happens to them. And look, McHenry was leaning towards supporting the original bill, the original Trumpcare legislation, which would kick 24 million people off health care and raise premiums for older and sicker Americans. So he was still Again, punching poor people in the face, but not kicking them when they're down. So that's what this equates to. And he's only in favor of keeping those things because they affected him personally. And that again, that's the problem. There's no empathy here for other people. There's self-interest. And you can see some of this with some people. Like, for example, those who support welfare and food stamps because they get them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, what do you mean? You're going after my welfare? You're going after my food stamps? No. I didn't want you to cut them for me. I wanted you to cut them for those people. Those other people. We didn't like those other people. But you can't take mine. Obviously, that's a huge broad brush. Not everybody is like that. But there's a lot are, and it's sort of a tribalist mentality. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people. I have people in my family that are like that. I mean, one was basically arguing against Bernie Sanders, arguing against single-payer healthcare because, hey, I don't care about other people. I just want to take care of me and mine. Now, obviously, that is an anecdote. That's anecdotal evidence. It doesn't really amount to much. But that's just my personal experience. You know, with people like, no, all I care about is me, mine, and my family. I don't care about anybody else. So anything that I have to pay for that ends up helping someone else, like a single payer through my taxes, I don't give a damn about.
Right. And what people love to overlook is the fact that we're already paying for
We already
the people
are,
that don't
absolutely.
have health care. We're already paying for them. You know, when someone goes to an emergency room and they don't have health care, they're not turned away, as they shouldn't be, but they're not turned away. We pick up those tabs.
We do. In higher insurance premiums, ironically. The very thing that they, of course, complain so much about. My premium's going up. Well, that's because there are sick people that can't afford a doctor that have to go to the hospital. And hospital care, that's not true health care. And tell me you've seen this argument from some conservatives that are like, well, that's okay. We can take away your health care if you can't afford it. You can still go to a hospital. But that's not health care. All they do is treat the immediate symptoms and then send you on. Or if you're somebody who's dying of cancer, for example, and I know I keep going back to the cancer example, but I've had cancer in my family. So this is a topic that hits really close. And thankfully, like, okay, so I'll be honest. My dad had cancer. He got through it. He survived. He got chemo. He was lucky enough to have good insurance and a good job. But imagine if he didn't. Like, imagine that someone doesn't, and they can't afford insurance, and they can't afford to go to a doctor, and they get bankrupt. Their family gets bankrupted. They they lose their house, all that stuff, and they still can't afford it. And then what? They go to the hospital. What do you expect the hospitals to do? Basically, to give you a place to die. And that's what's going on here in America, and that's disgusting.
I have a friend that is a very young guy, and by some kind of, I mean, it was a genetic thing mostly, but he ended up getting really bad colon cancer at an incredibly young age. I mean, he's only, I think he is 30 years old. And it was just a kind of genetic fluke thing. He got it, and they didn't catch it early because he was having issues, but they had no clue that they didn't even guess that that's what it could have been. They thought it was some kind of intestinal thing. They thought all kinds of things.
Sure.
And then they finally just did a colonoscopy, and they found the tumor. But anyway, he was a young guy at the time, didn't really even have health care. He was self-employed.
Right.
And thanks to the Affordable Care Act and the fact that the pre-existing condition thing went away, he was able to go sign up for the most extensive bulletproof healthcare plan he could get. And nobody was allowed to ask him questions. Nobody could ask him, like, what, because he, like, the person, he did, like, I think he did it over the phone or something. The person was like, why, I mean, you're a young man, why do you need this extent? And he's like, oh, I just want to, just in case, and so he got this really, I mean, it was not a cheap premium, but compared to if he was out of pocket for his treatments, it's very cheap, compared to that.
Right.
So he was able to get this bulletproof healthcare plan. But had the Affordable Care Act not been in place, and had the pre-existing conditions thing not been part of it,
Right.
it's hard to speculate what would have happened to him.
It is. Yeah, you're right. And I mean, and think about it again. If you can't afford that, you're screwed. You're dead. And they want to bring that back. I mean, and that's the good thing we have about the ACA with all of its problems is that you can't be denied with pre-existing conditions, and Trumpcare would undo a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so your friend would be absolutely screwed. Or lifetime caps, for example. That's also another thing that they'd want to bring back. Lifetime limit caps. So, once you could pay for insurance and pay for, have a really high premium. But once you hit that cap for coverage, you're done. It's what Alan Grayson said. If you get sick, die fast. And he got a lot of heat for that, but I think he was absolutely correct. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.